Hello everybody, this is Ann Mitchell, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to track down your family's vets. And that's not veterinarians, that's veterans. As you know, Memorial Day is just right around the corner. And it's always interesting as we think about those who are near and dear to us who fought in conflicts to also think about our ancestors who have fought in conflicts. Those are further generations away. So what I'm going to do today, because I can't possibly talk about all the different wars and how to research each one, but I was hoping I could give you a game plan, a way to get started, organize your thoughts and your data so you know who you might go after and who you might try and tell their story. So let's get started. I've also put all of my information in the PowerPoint slide that I'm going to show you. I found when I've done live demos that they tend to get fuzzy. I'm hoping that this solves that problem. If it doesn't, and it's still a little fuzzy, I'll go back and we'll try and find some different way to present the information. But hopefully this will work and you'll be able to see it well enough to follow along. All right, so let's get started. Where to start? The beginning, that's usually the best place. So let's choose the conflict. Generally, when I'm trying to figure out who fought in a specific war, who were my veterans, I pick a specific conflict. That way I'm looking at people in the same time frame, so I know what kind of documents to look for, and I can organize my thoughts. I can do the same thing for multiple people maybe, or just one person. Trying to do all the different wars at the same time probably doesn't make a lot of sense because each war had different documentation. So pick one. World War II is really close, and with the advent of the 1940 census, and I see Maine just came online for us the other day, but the 1940 census helps identify people who were very close to that, or serving in that war. And of course, the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, these are all things that we all look for in our families. Next, identify who you were looking for. Instead of just picking randomly out of your tree, look in your tree for who you would most likely think would be serving. Age, gender, ethnicity, and other factors will lead you in the right direction. Obviously, you had to be of the right age, though you never know. I did a story about a Civil War vet who was 60 when he started serving. And that sounds sort of crazy and not expected. But you can sort of get them down to the right person, 18 to say 30 in World War II, though it very well may be outside that range. People lie, people make things up. If you're in World War II, a lot of people of German descent were sent over to the Pacific Theater. A lot of people of Japanese descent were gathered in certain groups and sent over to Europe. So just think about who they were, where they were, and what might be happening. In World War II, you might also want to think, if you have people of Japanese descent, what happened to them during the war? What happened here at home? I always find it really interesting to talk to my grandparents and my parents and my aunts and uncles and find out what their memories were of that particular time. Identify the possible candidates in your tree. I'll show you some tricks on how to do that. Then identify possible sources to look at for your soldier. This is really important. Just don't go all willy-nilly. Well, you can if you want. Sometimes that's fine. But if you know the places you want to look or where you should start, that'll help you feel organized and it will help you feel like you're doing the right thing at the right time. Record as you go. Starting tomorrow, I have a two-part series where I'm going to tell you guys how to, or at least a way to start telling the story. And I'll give you a little preview of that today. But if you start to write things down as you go, instead of waiting till you're done with your family history, well, you're never done with your family history. And if you write it down as you go, you'll find it a lot easier to put together a family story. All right. So, first thing we're going to do, we're going to choose a conflict. I'm going to use the Civil War for this particular example. I've got tons of Civil War vets in my family, so it made it sort of easy for me. But the idea works with any conflict. So, it was fought between 1861 and 1865. Awesome. That way I know I can figure out how old people were and if they could have possibly served in this war. In the Civil War, the state your ancestor was living in will determine which side they probably fought for. Most of our wars, all Americans fought on the same side. This one, of course, was a tad different. What are you looking for? In the Civil War, I'm looking for men, though women did fight, and women did serve in various branches in every war. But in this case, I'm looking for people or men born between 1816 and 1846. This includes men between the ages of 15 and 45 in 1861. For example, in World War II, not as many people who were 15. That war tended to be a little bit older. If you look at Korea, if you look at Vietnam, again, go read up, even if it's something as simple as Wikipedia, and try and understand a little bit about who got pulled into the war, who got drafted, and how that worked. And then generally, if the Civil War, men who were in the 1860 census. If it's the War of 1812, go look at the 1810 census. If it's the Revolutionary War, well, you know, there are no censuses that are going to help us there because we were still part of England. In World War II, you want to look at 1940. Now, one interesting thing with World War I is that if you look at 1920, it will tell you the war in which they served. It's over on the right-hand side. I don't have a picture of it, but if you go look at any 1920 census, 1930 census, I take that back, it will tell you what war they served in, and that's really useful for finding who might have been there. All right, so we know who we're looking for. We've got that figured out. Now, how do I go find those people? Well, let me show you a really nifty trick in Family Tree Maker. And this is, the example I'm showing you is from Family Tree Maker 2012. And if you don't have it, the reason I recommend it is because you can sync it. And what that means is if you have your tree on Family Tree Maker, you can do all your wonderful organizing and putting things together and pulling things in. You can sync it online, to privately or publicly, and then you've got it there. And you can also, at that point, view it on your iPod, your iPad, your Android, or any other tablet device you can think of. And that's awesome, because if you have it with you on the go, if you find something when you're out and about, or if some thought occurs to you, you can update it as you go. All right, so back to Family Tree Maker. I'll stop the commercial. So I'm going to start with everyone in my tree. And if you're in Family Tree Maker, down the right-hand side, which is right over here, of course put on the left just to confuse you, sorry about that, you'll have a list of everybody. Now if you look down here, you'll see a filter button down at the bottom of the list. Let's click on filter. What pops up is this screen, all right? And this allows me to decide who I want from my family, all right? And this is a rather big tree I've got. It's got 2,400 people in it. Some of you have bigger trees. So I'm going to click on Include All, because I'm going to filter people out who could not have served. So I just say Include All. It puts everybody in there. Awesome. Next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to say filter out, all right? So I'm going to click on Filter Out. It's right down there. And then I want to filter on Vital Facts. First, I want to filter out everyone who's female. Again, there were some females who fought in the Civil War or other wars, not that common. Then I'm going to filter out people who were born before 1818 and people who were born after 1846. Of course, there may be other people, but this gives me a list to start with. Now I have 356 men in my tree born between 1818 and 1846. You can then go through and sort of figure out if there's other filters you want to add or make a list of who it is you want to work with. But this is a way to get it down to a nice small list. Another thing you might want to do is make a direct line tree. What I do is I have a tree that just has all my direct lines on it, and then if I go through and I do filters on that, then I have all my direct ancestors that would fulfill any specific thing I'm looking for. I don't necessarily keep records there, but it gives me a way just to look at my direct ancestors. Okay, so I chose a conflict, identified who I was looking for, identified the candidates in my tree. Then I'm going to identify possible sources to search. Well, no surprise, the first one I'm going to look at is Ancestry. If I go up here to the header, and I hope you all have noticed we have this new little hint notification and message notification. Check that out. Also, and this has nothing to do with the vets, but if you go to the hint notification, it will allow you to decide which trees you get hints on, and it will let you decide if you want member tree hints. Little tidbit in there. Back to sources. All right, so I'm going to click on search, mouse over search, and I will then click on military. That will bring me to this page, military records. Now I can just search all of military and have a really nice advanced form that I can do that with. I can narrow it by category, which maybe draft, enlistment and service, pension records, histories, all that good kind of stuff. featured data collections. But what I'm going to recommend is if you're looking at a specific conflict, you go down here to more help, and it has Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, other conflicts. Click on one of those. I clicked on World War II, and it brings up this particular data collection, or excuse me, this particular search form. What this will do is it will take every data collection we've got on World War II, and it will allow you to search them. This will make your life a lot easier. You can do all military collections, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, and then the lovely catch-all other conflicts. But this is a great way to start your search on military records for a specific person and a specific war. Use this as a way to get started. I'm also going to recommend Fold 3. Fold 3 is our sister site, and they are a military site. They have great collections of military records. They have a lot of great pension records, and a great service records, especially for the Civil War. Their stuff on the Revolutionary War is just amazing. You can get lost in those records. All right, so if you go to the main page of Fold 3, fold3.com, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on World War II. That will open up down here this box, and it'll give you some top data collections that you can look at, but then you can also click on Browse All World War II Records, if that's the war you're looking at, and it gives you a list of everything they've got, and they mark it as free, and then from there you can go ahead and you can search. This is a really great way to just go through and look at what they've got. And they have a great collection. They also have some stuff on the Mexican, American, and early Indian wars. Most of that stuff is hard to find online as of today. A lot of it you have to get from NARA, the National Archives, but it is worth looking at. And they've added some Korean and Vietnam War records as well. Take a look. You never know what you might find. Go ahead and look. You can look at all the data collections they have. You don't have to sign up and pay. And if you do decide that money's tight and you don't want to do a whole year, there usually is an Ancestry.com subscriber. You can get it at half price. You can maybe just sign up for a month. And if you really concentrate your focus, you can go through and look at what you've got. So that's one way to deal with that. Also, a lot of this is available through libraries. You might want to check that out as well. All right, so we've chosen a conflict, identified who we're looking for, and that basically is characteristics of people, identified the candidates in our tree that meet those characteristics, identified where we're going to start searching. Now we're going to record as you go. This is really important. Genealogy, family history, is not about collecting records. It's about proving kinship and proving identity. Who's related to who and who were they? What was their life like? Records are just evidence and information that help us tell that story. So it's really important as you find records that you record as you go so you understand what it is. You don't have to write beautiful prose, but you should write notes so that you know what you've already done. I know I have gone back too many times when I do not record as I go, and I do the same thing over and over. And given how many people I need to research and how much I need to do, this seems like a waste of time. So let me give you some quick pointers on how you can do that simply on Ancestry. All right, so let's say you're on the record. This particular record tells me a whole lot. Doesn't have an image, but there's a lot of information in here. It tells me how old he was when he was enlisted, when his enlistment date was. It tells me what he looked like. These are awesome records. One of the great things about military records is they usually have a physical description. So if the soldier had to be identified, if he died on the battlefield or somewhere else, they could identify him. This is awesome. This is information that you're not going to be able to get because most of these people don't have pictures, especially Civil War on back. They have a birth date, they have a death date. That applies to pension records. This is really important. You might also want to look at where it came from. This may be another source for you to go track down. So what I did is I wrote it all down. I typed it up. Now you can use anything. You can use Word. You can use Notepad. The great thing about Word is you can cut images and you can paste it in there, and then you can upload that later to the site. I have lately been trying to use OneNote because I find it really easy just to collect and organize things. Evernote is also good. What's nice about Evernote and OneNote is you can also use these easily on your portable devices, your iPad, your iPod. So, you know, if you just are out and you find something, if you're at a library or a certain thought occurs to you, something you need to do, you can record it there. All right, so where do you put your story? You don't want to just have a bunch of paper laying around in your office. Someday, I know I'm going to go through and clean that paper and get it all out of there. But it's a lot better to have it online in some organized kind of way. So if you go to what we call the person page, you will see on the overview, it says upload photos, add a story. Sorry about that. Add a story. So I'm going to, hold on. All right, so I'm going to click on add a story. When I do that, I get this. And you can choose, do I want to write a story? And this is going to give you just a little, it's like a little bit more advanced notepad, or you can upload a story from your computer. So if you have it in a PDF, which people like because then nobody can change it, or if you have it on Word, you can upload it as well. I'm going to click write your own story. So I title my story. I can choose the fonts, bolds, italics, all that other good stuff. Then I can bring it all together and put it in here. I can add more as I go along. It can be beautiful sentences, which these are not. It can be just little notes, anything you want. But the idea is you've captured this, and the next time you need to go look and see what you've done, you don't have to go redo it all again. You've already abstracted out the important stuff. I can attach it to the relevant person, the relevant people. I have a pension record for James Calvin. I can attach it to him and his wife, and even his children, if that seems to make sense. Then I've got it there. Anytime I want to review or add it, I've got it there. If I decide to go write the family history, I've got a bunch of data already there. This is really useful. You can also go through and update this little timeline here. Just reading birth, marriage, residence, it gets boring. We'd like not to be boring. If you show this page to your children or people at your family reunion, they're going to be bored. If you start to put words in there and put a story in there, well, some of them are still going to be bored, but it'll be a little bit more interesting. How you do this is if you click here on this particular one, residence, it'll bring you to this page. You can update the date, the location, and then you can put in a description. You can make it whatever you want, but that's going to show up on your timeline. And if your tree is public, anyone can see it. Any story you attach, if your tree is public, anyone can see it. And once it's public and once it's out there, don't put anything out there you don't want anybody else to see. Let's just leave it at that. Then you can save changes, and you can update this. And then if you go through and you do this for everything in your timeline, you've got a nice little story and you can read through it, and it helps you remind you of that person. You can't keep every detail on every person in your tree all at the same time. If you write it down, you don't have to worry about it. Just go back and it's there. All right. Choose a conflict. Identify who you're looking for. This means what are the general characteristics of people who fought in this particular war. Identify candidates in your tree who match that. Identify possible sources to search. Once you've found those records, record as you go. If you do this, you're going to build a story of what that person's life was like during that conflict. And even if it's somebody at home, just through the records of the document what they were like, what their life was like at home, that'll tell you something about their life as well. I hope this helps you get started. Remember, there are a lot of people who fought and died for us and everything that we hold dear. It's always good to go out and remember them. As you know, we do a lot of these presentations. What's upcoming? And you can always find us at facebook.com/ancestry.com/events. This is today's. Tomorrow I'm going to go much more in depth in how to do the story of your ancestors. And that'll be a two-parter, one tomorrow, one a week from tomorrow. Looks like on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. No, excuse me, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. That's really important. 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Krista Cowan will be doing a tweet chat. And you know the barefoot genealogist has always got something interesting to say. Then she's going to also be talking on Thursday about unique resources for ethnic origins, and that will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Excuse me. And then, this is my second part, and then also Krista, our barefoot genealogist, will be talking about using notes in FTM and trees and how to keep track of all that research. It's a good couple of weeks for organization. It's been a pleasure talking to y'all today. Remember, this will be up on our live stream channel if you want to go back and reference it. I'll see you tomorrow.